Look, bro, all I wanted to do this recap is wear this bald cap and this suit, and make sure you weren't embarrassing me in front of Vanessa. Gotta wait till next week. Hello, Hawkeye fans! Thanks so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris. Episode 4 of Hawkeye has released online, and although we didn't get the cameo or appearance we were hoping for, we did get a different cameo and appearance from another character that, you know what, I do have in Funko form. One sec. There we go, Yelena. What I'm going to do here for you guys is giving you my episode 4 breakdown of Hawkeye, giving you my spoiler review, pointing out little Easter eggs you might have missed here and there, and speculating to what exactly is going on, because I think I got a theory on why this Rolex is important. As well as don't be forgetting to leave me your thoughts and theories with everything we discuss here today. Alright, so with the opening of episode 4 of Hawkeye, we start off where we left them off, with the swordsman finding Hawkeye in the apartment of the Bishops. He did what he thought he should and defend the honor of his home, only to realize that it was an Avenger right in front of him. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I've been really liking Hawkeye so far, but episode 4 was kind of a mixed bag for me. I think this whole interaction and conversation that Hawkeye has to have with the mom of Kate and Swordsman was a little awkward, to say the least, because it really does put things in perspective for you of like, why the heck is Hawkeye running around with this young girl? We all know the show's reason for wanting to do that is he wants to protect her because people think she's the Ronin, and it's also Marvel's way of setting up Haley Steinfeld to be the next Hawkeye, but I feel like the show doesn't really do it in the most natural way, and this was a perfect example of it. But I did like the conversation that Eleanor had with Hawkeye when she was walking him to the elevator, where I may point out there are more swords there for her swordsman boyfriend. One detail in this conversation when Eleanor is saying, please leave my daughter out of this, she's not an Avenger, even going as far as to mention Natasha Romanoff was one of the best out there and she ended up dying in battle, a sore subject for Clint, but she went there. I like whenever Eleanor asks Hawkeye if he has a family and he just stays completely blank and not shaking a head. To us, the audience, it's pretty common knowledge that Hawkeye has a family. We gotta remember, it's something he's been trying to keep secret ever since Age of Ultron, where he never really answered the question if he had a family himself. So it's just kind of cool that he still tries to keep that under wraps. From there, we see Hawkeye walk the streets of New York and call his wife, where we see his wife is a woman of many talents, speaking different languages, and even advising Hawkeye on some things, where she even brings up the Rolex, that could be one of the big things that they are after in this black market sell. And I have a lot of theories on that Rolex, but we'll get to talking about that in a sec. As that's happening with Clint, we move back to Kate Bishop's character, who's having a conversation with her mother and the swordsman, where I feel like the show is really trying to sway us one way or another. Now, I feel like we all have the little suspicious feeling that Eleanor isn't an innocent mother as we all think, and that maybe she'll be revealed to be one of the big bad guys by the end of the show. But it seems like through this conversation, they were really trying to sway us that the swordsman actually isn't as bad of a guy as he seems, especially with making him a lovable goof with the way he mispronounces a couple of phrases, specifically the one pulled out of Forrest Gump, where instead of saying life is like a box of chocolates, he says life is short, you never know what you're gonna get. I don't know, part of me believes that this is still part of his plan and he's doing it on purpose. Don't forget, this was the same guy who was pretending to let Kate win in a battle of fencing to only give her the upper hand at the end of it. I feel like this could be part of his game, and if he's someone who's always mispronouncing things and being a bit of a goofball, he might come off innocent himself. So I feel like he's still playing this family. Bringing us back to Hawkeye, who is starting to tape himself up with a bunch of frozen food, something that is taken specifically from the comics of the Matt Fraction run of Hawkeye, where we can still even see the long sleeve tattoo he decided to get in between Infinity War and Endgame, to then where Kate shows up wanting to give Hawkeye a bit of a Christmas break and do some of the things he would have been doing if he was with his family. And I thought this was some great lighthearted fun between Hawkeye and Kate Bishop's character, where they're really bonding, and you can kind of see a little bit of the passing of the torch here, where Hawkeye is even teaching her a couple of moves, sharing some war stories. One move in particular that Hawkeye shows her is the way he flicks an ornament from the tree, and this form of flicking actually does come from the Matt Fraction run of Hawkeye, where by the end of that run, Hawkeye uses a toothpick, flicks it into the eye of the clown, one of the bad guys we see in that series, and I feel like maybe that's what they're setting up here, especially since Kate Bishop learns that move by the end of this sequence. However, when a lot of the Christmas cheery spirit starts to go down, we get into a serious conversation where Clint starts giving her clues of the time he first met Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. We're getting a lot of Black Widow references in this episode, and for good reason, especially with the way this one ends. But it's always interesting to see that Clint struggles with the history he has with Natasha and the way it really affects him that she's now gone from his life. Also surprised as hell that they didn't say the word Budapest in this story, because come on, you gotta say Budapest. But last takeaway here from this scene scene and where I was talking about things that are being set up here that might happen by the end of the series is where they're talking about a lot of the trick arrows. I thought this was interesting to bring up because Hawkeye is in a situation where he doesn't really have a supplier for all these trick arrows anymore. One could assume they were being supplied by either S.H.I.E.L.D. or Tony Stark, heck even some by Hank Pym since he had a Pym arrow last episode, but it seems now that he's more retired and he doesn't have a lot of his connections with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Tony Stark being dead, he's running very low on trick arrows where pretty soon he'll be out of them. And Haley Steinfeld makes a suggestion for a boomerang arrow, something that did happen in the Matt Fraction comic run where Haley Steinfeld used a boomerang arrow to stop one of the Tracksuit Mafia. And again, I feel like that's something they set up here that we could eventually see happen. Once Hawkeye goes to sleep, he starts having visions of his daughter from the opening of Avengers Endgame, and then some flashbacks to being Ronin and killing some goons, as well as the death of Natasha, to then be drinking from a mug that says Thanos was right, the second time that appears in this series, with Haley Steinfeld's character wearing a shirt that was also part of the Matt Fraction run. It's in this conversation where they have to split ways and go through with a mission where Hawkeye tells Kate she needs to go talk to some of her LARPing buddies to be able to get some of Hawkeye's trick arrows out of the police department, while Hawkeye goes to talk to one of the Tracksuit Mafia people, Kazi, hoping maybe he could come to an understanding and put this whole thing behind him, but obviously that's not going to go well. This is another part of the episode where it just felt a little rocky for me, especially when Kate Bishop goes up to the LARPing people and just straight up says, "Hey, I'm with the Avengers, I need you to do this mission for me, can we get it done?" And there really is no conflict, no questioning, no like, all right, that seems logical. And this woman who works for the police department is completely fine with stealing some arrows from evidence to bring them to her. I'm just like, that doesn't feel natural. It feels like there would be another step here. It would be a complication. And also this feels like a filler episode type side mission. I was just as confused in a WTF moment with Hawkeye when he showed up to the apartment and all these LARPers are there just casually smiling, having fun. And I guess it should be pointed out that some characters from this LARPing event are actually from the comics and are villains, which maybe explains why she's fine with tampering with police evidence, but I just don't feel like that's an actual villain they'll bring in here. Same thing with the character of Orbital, who plays Oddball in the comics. It's nice to throw them in there, but I just doubt they'll become something in the end. Bringing us to some of the last moments of this episode where Clint and Kate are tasked to go to the apartment to find this Rolex. Now, there's been a lot of theories to what is the importance of this Rolex, and I think the most popular one that makes sense is that this Rolex obviously belonged to Tony Stark, and that would make sense. It's a Rolex, it's an expensive watch, so that means it must belong to an expensive character, and I would think that's Tony Stark. It doesn't really make sense for any other Avenger to have that watch. So then why would someone want Tony Stark's Rolex? People are saying that this Rolex could be the key to maybe opening a secret vault or location inside Avengers Tower. We saw in the first episode they mentioned that Avengers Tower was sold off by Tony, and maybe that mention meant we were going to get more answers to who bought Avengers Tower in the Hawkeye series, or else why even bring up the whole thing. And since we're all waiting for a certain bald-headed big guy to show up, Kingpin, some fans believe that it could be Kingpin who actually bought Avengers Tower for the purpose of this hidden vault inside Avengers Tower that Tony was never able to get rid of, and that Rolex he has could be a key to unlocking all of that. I like that theory, but then we'll just have to see how that plays out. Nonetheless, inside the apartment that we do find out is actually Maya's, she triggers a silent alarm and even finds a list of Hawkeye's family, which that right there should have pissed off the boy. I know it would have made me mad, only for Maya to show up and start kicking the butt of Kate Bishop, while on the other side, Hawkeye is being attacked by a mysterious goggle-headed figure. Now, this outfit that Yelena is wearing is actually pulled from the comic books and is a version of the Black Widow outfit, so I thought that was really nice that they brought that in there, and we should all know why Yelena is currently going after Hawkeye. If you stayed for the end credits of Black Widow, you might remember the character of Valentina showing Yelena a photo of Hawkeye in his Ronin outfit and accusing him of killing Natasha, her sister. But from the perspective of Hawkeye here, he just takes that as, oh my god, someone just hired a Black Widow to come and kill me, making the situation a lot more deadlier than he originally thought, especially when Kate puts herself in a position that almost recreates Natasha falling off Volmir. That really triggers Hawkeye and makes him realize, Kate, you need to stay out of this from now on. But aside from some of those mixed things on this episode where I feel not everything transitionally moves to the next story point, I'm really really curious to see how they're going to blend this all together now that Yelena's involved, because she's not connected to Kingpin or the Tracksuit Mafia or anybody else. She just wants to go after Hawkeye, and then whatever conversation is going to come between them where they either become friends or they stay enemies, and then what's going to happen when Kingpin shows up, man. He better not just be a half-second thing at the end of the episode. I need me some full bald-headed baby Kingpin. But that's where I throw it off to you guys. What did you think of episode 4 of Hawkeye? Leave me your thoughts and theories down below, specifically what you think of that Rolex and its involvement. And again, everything, be sure to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, 3C Films, or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.